there will be no real non-controlled currency in the world.
We're coming for you, banks.
Bitcoin is punk rock. Deal with it.
You split, we bankrupt you.
Do you use Lightning wallets to pay for things or not?
No.
Bitcoin Cash would be seen as more of a threat to the United States hegemony than Bitcoin.
Miles, Tom, what's your favorite kind of money?
Bitcoin Cash.
Hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Cash podcast. Following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency, today's the day to make it happen. It's episode number 55, BCH day number 5, actually. So coincidental 555 right there. Today is Monday, the 1st of August, 2022. I'm your host, Jeremy. No guest today. Jett is producing and giving us insights on the show, and we're also having some drinks. So I am having vodka Smirnoff and what's this? Cherry Coke, and I've got some rum and Coke here as well, too, as a backup. What are you drinking, Jett?
I'm drinking, I guess, a shitty Dave Matthews is what they're called. It's normally like clear rum with amaretto and pineapple juice and cranberries, and then normally there's like a lime garnish. I just shot a bit of lime juice in there.
Mate, that's pretty fancy. I always feel bad because, well, I don't feel bad, I guess, but when I'm at a bar, I always order like a rum and Coke, even though I don't say Cuba Libre because I feel like that's kind of posh to do, right? Or if I get a vodka orange juice, which I also like, that's called a screwdriver.
Yeah.
But I don't say that just because I'm worried that the bar person is gonna not know that and say what, and I'm gonna say, yeah, vodka orange juice, and they're gonna say, oh, right. And like, we could just avoid all of that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I wonder how. I guess it must be. But I've never worked at a bar. I guess it must be part of working there that you learn the top 100 different cocktails. But you couldn't know everyone. Sure, there's so many random different ones that people know or whatever, right?
And I imagine they would there's definitely people still making new drinks, right? So what are you gonna do? Yeah. Like once a month, go on Reddit, the new drinks.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you probably need to know the top 25 most common or whatever, but it would be a Pareto distribution. So probably if it's in that final 20%, then it's just like, explain to me, man, because I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Make it yourself at home if you're so fancy or whatever. This is not the Empire State Building or something. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, so anyway, that's it. I don't think we've ever done a drinks stream before, and I guess we're not going to get too drunk, probably, but yeah.
Cheers.
I'm not. Cheers, mate. Can we do like?
It's too far away from me, but
right. Well, celebration is on then. Let's get cracking. Let's get straight into it. So, first thing is the price, because what else would you care about on the 5th anniversary of Bitcoin Cash independence? So we actually had a good week this week. It could have been a better week, honestly. The price has been higher, but we've had a good, solid, nice bump up to $136.92 per BCH. One BTC buys 168.2 BCH, so a bit of an increase there. It was as high or as low, depending on how you look at it, as 149 point something. So it did get under 150 to 1, which was good. And I've also got here one Ethereum buys 11.89 BCH. I have decided that it is time to start representing the BCH to Ethereum price and talking about that every week to front run the fact that Ethereum is on the rise to eventually take over BTC and be the market leader. So we're going to front run that by already tracking the price against Ethereum. because eventually everyone's going to start tracking against Ethereum, like they start tracking against BTC. And I also want to tell the listeners, I picked up a tiny bit, like $50 or $100 of Ethereum and a little bit of Monero. And I'm going to keep putting a little bit into those, obviously still mostly BCH because it's the bomb, but I'm also going to get a little bit of those other ones because I can see that they're also going to be making gains in this environment against BTC. So very rare portfolio update and speculative side from me. But how are you feeling about the price, man? Is it good to have a plus week?
I mean, yeah, but to be honest, I've been so busy, I haven't actually like used any Bitcoin Cash in a week or two, and so I don't know. I kind of feel like, well, like this rally isn't for me. We gotta go back for another dip. I'll get some more. I'll go for the next one. Yeah, I mean,
Could have been the bottom there, whatever it was, $94, $95, whatever.
yeah, I think it was. I remember for sure in the chat seeing that $99 one, but yeah, I mean, it's nice to just see everyone else a little more excited about it, and to be able to open an app and see green instead of red. There's something mentally about that, right? That's a little more comforting, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Not too big of a concern for me.
Well, we've had a rough run, basically, right? And I feel great on this show to be able to give good news. If you bought last week, you're up. When is the last time that we got to announce that, right? So it's good to add a little bit of energy into the scene. And while, yeah, you just dollar cost average. We talked about all those ways to survive the bear market, blah, blah, blah. Keep earning, keep spending, play the long game. Just imagine the dollars being pumped out at an all-time high, which they are. That supply is devaluing and so on and so forth. But yeah, Bitcoin payment module has a great question in the chat. Did you get a haircut or is it just man buns today?
It's just a man bun. It's at the point where I need to get a trim. It's fucking annoying, man. So anytime I'm
Very
doing something
inconvenient.
now, yeah, it's going back.
All right, I see. Including the podcast, serious business.
Exactly.
Once the podcast starts, you got to look professional for that. And we will get to some of this discussion about the BCH birthday stuff. I'll get to that Bitcoin payment module. All right, so that's the price, and we're now tracking against Ethereum because it's on the rise. BTC is on the way out, so we've got to be ahead of the game there. All right, next one, we got the transaction count, which has been still kind of flash, but it's showing a bit of signs of life this week. There was a bit of a rise, 30K, 35K transactions. This definitely seems to be the hard floor of the actual utility of Bitcoin Cash. So I'm loving that. And on the next slide, then we've got the cent USD as well too, which has hit a nice and a real nice low again. So I'm kind of waiting around to see a day where the cent in USD is just flat for 3 days, a week, something like that, where it's just mega low, and so that I can go and say I'm going to start predicting that this was actually the bottom. But as time goes on, I'm feeling a little bit more bullish, right?
When you look at this chart, do you not already see a flat line?
Well, obviously, there's BCH is the flat line. We're going nowhere. I'm talking about the BTC.
Okay.
I want to see that. I'm talking. Look, like this period here, right? You see in June 2022 where it was just a little bit lower. It was in the 20 billion range, and now it's been bouncing around in the 50 to 75 range. I want to see another period like June 2022 happen right here for a week or 2 weeks maybe, and then I would be more likely to say, look, okay, that's it. We've hit the bottom. Whoever has sold, and we're going to just slowly, start the very slow ascent up into the next hype in 18 months or whatever, right? But you never want to predict the bull market too early. You always want to be surprised that the bull market has started, rather than starting your hopium too early, right? So,
did we talk about like that period in the cent USD for Bitcoin on this podcast, or Like has
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Well, we check this in on this every episode, but I'm 100% sure that I didn't say, it's this is the bottom, blah blah blah, because I knew I said like
no.
it hasn't got there, right?
I mean like April May looks like a pretty interesting kind of growth, and then to see it just like fall off.
What was
so
what was going on
sharply.
in that time?
Yeah.
Was that I can't remember. I'm sure we talked about it at the time, but it wasn't it something like Michael Saylor was dumping, or it wasn't that, but it was something like that. There was some reason behind it, some sort of big corporate moves. Maybe the price was really starting to dip off as everyone realized. Maybe that was when we went under 20K. That feels like too far back. I don't know. We're not getting any help from the chat either. I don't know what it was, but whatever. Go back and listen to the April and May episodes, and I'm sure we've got top tier analysis of it at that time. So that's ancient history now. All right. Today, let's talk about recent history. Today is the fifth anniversary of the Bitcoin Cash being an independent currency from Bitcoin BTC. And as Bitcoin Payment Module correctly points out in the chat, people shouldn't support it as the beginning of BCH. They shouldn't celebrate it in that way, and I don't. I am very clear that the birthday of Bitcoin and BCH is clearly in January 2009. It doesn't make sense that we would have transactions in our blockchain before the first birthday. That makes no sense at all. So it's clearly, has its origins in 2009. But nevertheless, I think it is still quite an important thing as a sort of an Independence Day. People have talked about it, or a fork day. It kind of really drives home the point, I think. And it's hard for the community to get sidetracked into the same problem again, as long as we remember both the original creation of Bitcoin and then the fact that we had to win, have a civil war to reestablish that, right? If you don't reinforce something over time, it gradually gets watered down and fades away. So that's kind of how I take it. I don't know. How do you see it?
So I think that this kind of celebration will water down and fade away. But I think it'll take a while. I think the people that are I think you're going to end up with just like two different types of people. You have people who obsess over what a certain coin that they're going to use, and they take this like more technical and deep interest in it, and they're going to participate in this kind of thing. But I don't think the majority of people are going to give a damn. So, and that's not a bad thing. I do think that the framing from as a birthday mostly came from less technically involved people that were still excited and still wanted to do some kind of marketing and share things on Twitter and Reddit. So I'm not gonna it's one of those things. I appreciate the sentiment, even if you want to be like, well, actually, I get what they're going for, and I'm not gonna give them shit for it.
Yeah, whether it's an anniversary or a birthday, it's a bit in the weeds. I agree with you that as time goes on, especially if BCH expands more, there will be more sort of people kind of at the fringe, if you want to look at it that way. But it will be like a very big fringe if you think of it like as expanding concentric circles who won't give a crap about all this stuff, right? They just want to pay, and they just pay, and they know that BCH is the one that works and that everybody accepts, and so that's what they do, right? But nevertheless, I think it's important for the people who are more involved to preserve that culture. And you don't need to have everybody preserve it, but it's nice to have it as the most involved people, because at the same time as the majority of people might not be so involved in the decision making day to day. So if they don't remember the exact history and the mistakes that were made, they're more just going to go along with the crowd. The people who need to remember and who need to be vigilant, obviously, ideally would be everyone. But in the generic case, it's probably going to be the people who are most involved, right? So anyway, listeners to this show can be part of that category for sure. So because it is August the 1st, I took a look at the August the 1st episode. I don't think maybe it wasn't even August the 1st, but the BCH Day episode we did last year, 1 year ago. And obviously it's the first time we're able to do that. And it's kind of amazing to see what was being thought about at that time. And you were actually the guest on that episode, quite sort of coincidentally. I think it might have been after this that you started just producing the show all the time, actually. But at that time, to give people a bit of a time capsule, Bitcoin Cash was $550. The BTC BCH ratio was 72.5, and we were number 12 on CoinMarketCap. And I was in that episode, I was joking about, oh, the price is going back up, even though I'm predicting a huge doom and gloom scenario for crypto. So hopefully I don't look like an idiot in a year's time where we just rocket back off. So I'm taking that as a win. Definitely got that right. But it was super interesting to take a look at what we were talking about. So there was a little bit of talk about how the 2021 hard fork upgrade had gone really smoothly. This year it was just sort of expected, but I think that was the first one after the eCash fork. So the fact that it went smooth and there was no problems was a bigger deal. There was a bit of chat about maximalism with BCH maximalism, or people being involved in specific coins, which is quite ironic because in this current week, we're getting to a point of seeing BTC maximalism really starting to run into some grief after a couple of years of sort of being quite the narrative. Smart BCH had just been released at that time 1 year ago, and now that's kind of mirrored in CoinFlex, and the problems obviously we've had with that for better and for worse. Tether was on CNBC. They were promising that they were going to do audits, which they didn't really deliver on, to nobody's surprise, I think. But it's kind of interesting with all the problems we've seen with stable coins and the change in narrative around that. And Elon Musk was in the news with talking about BTC with Cathie Wood and Jack Dorsey, and kind of hinting a bit at big blocks, which, as we're going to see as well today, that also has kind of come apart a bit at the seams. So it was really interesting to me to see that basically all the things that were on the menu 1 year ago, whether it was inside BCH or outside, 1 year later have basically fallen flat. Like none of these big narratives about, oh, Tether's going to do an audit and be fine. Elon was loving BTC. Smart BCH is going to kick off. Maximalism's still the best. That's what all it takes is 1 year and the world has moved on. And none of those things really played out for the better. Did you take anything out of that very consistent pattern across those topics?
It's so weird that I never considered that nothing really came to fruition from any of that. Like it didn't even cross my mind. And it's also interesting, like, just on a personal note, I was so much more skeptical about maximalism then than I am now. Maybe there's just this little piece of contrarian personality in me, right? BTC maximalism is dying. I was skeptical of maximalism then, and now I'm becoming more of a Bitcoin Cash maximalist. I do think like the smoothness of upgrading and the chip process has been fantastic. CoinFlex blowing up in our faces is, I mean, it's like a drama show for me now. Again, speaking from a place of privilege where I did not have money in CoinFlex. I feel bad for the people that did, but I am over it, right? So it's not has nothing to do with the network. But funny to me a little bit that all the chats are like, God damn it, CoinFlex. Anyway, I get why, but I don't even Tether. Okay. Yeah, okay. I don't know, man. Elon's a wild card still in my mind. Like, I think he just needs a particularly boring weekend and he can go back to the same rambunctious shit. What's Jack doing now? The Web 5
Good
stuff,
question.
right?
Yeah, that's right. He came out with his big Web 5, and he's been a big proponent of the whole we're going to build stuff on top of Bitcoin, which is, it's kind of funny that this whole we're going to build stuff on top of Bitcoin BTC type of story has been going on now literally since before the fork. And we're now, what, 5 years later, or up to 6 or 7 years, because it was certainly started earlier. And like, what has really come out of that? Okay, Lightning Network a little bit, but sort of not. Whereas Bitcoin Cash in 1 year has both built and then screwed up smart BCH, right? So it really goes to show the change in pace of innovation, and hopefully CoinFlex and all that can get fixed, and it will be like, yeah, Bitcoin Cash can have, there's always going to be some problems and trial by fire. The reason there hasn't been as much of that on BTC is because they haven't innovated that much. They haven't got much going, so there wasn't much to screw up, right? But you know,
That's fair.
That yeah.
Isn't the
Not to be unsympathetic to the CoinFlex people, by the way. I mean, I know we've kind of been over this on the show. I agree with you. Like, I'm a little bit over it too. We will touch on the latest with that as well too, but it seems like there's not much the majority of people can do about it. So it's kind of just like, just got to move on. Anyway.
Okay, yeah, I'm all good.
All right. So that's that. That's what it was 1 year ago. And anybody can look at episode 25 if you want to get a bit of a blast from the past and really compare now to then. I was watching that episode last night, and it really puts things in perspective, actually, as to how far things have come in 1 year. So on the next slide, it's about what are we at with this year, right? Because the question is what was not on that list, right? Like the Caribbean adoption, that hadn't come up at all. Smart BCH was totally new, but yeah, the Caribbean stuff hadn't come up at all. All the Luna and all the stable coins and all that stuff blowing up and having problems, all the centralized services melting down and so forth, that was nowhere to be seen. I'm trying to think what else that has been majorly going on this year. The podcast was a lot smaller, for instance. We probably had about half as many or a bit less YouTube subs and probably similar on most of the other metrics. So it was much smaller. And in that time, we've done 30 episodes, right? Between 25 and 55. So probably not a bit better than once every fortnight, which I'm pretty pleased about. That's kind of the pace. I try to get him to about every 10 days, so every fortnight. And there was no double spend proofs. Obviously, we got another May hard fork in without any problems. And Bitcoin Payment Module says, number one positive achievement for us was Josh Green of Software Verde was one of the very first people to use our payment module to purchase a beer at a bar using BCH and our hardware at a meetup. We might actually have to try and get Bitcoin Payment Module on the show sometime. Seems to be doing some great work, and we've been seeing like videos of it in development, but it seems this kind of integrated payment terminals and hardware is actually starting to come together and start rolling out at meetup. So that would be actually awesome to get a look at.
Can I hijack this real quick? So
yeah, go on.
I mentioned a couple episodes ago, maybe like a month or two ago, that I was starting to work with a couple people on an open source Bitcoin Cash ATM project. A lot of things have happened since, right? So none of them have been fantastic. There are a lot of issues with just shipping certain parts of this project to me, and it's made it ridiculously expensive, especially with this market downturn. So if anyone wants to contribute, I have what I think is the majority of the code already done. We forked this from a pre-existing project. I just made a couple changes, swapped out some libraries, made it for Bitcoin Cash. So if anyone wants to contribute to that, reach out on Telegram. I can send you the link, and we can hopefully get something going there. Because, yeah, I'm pretty sure most of the code is done. We just need to put the stuff together, and some of that we do need to figure out the electronics for, because we are changing a few of the pieces. But yeah, anyone that wants to contribute, it's they're more than welcome, and I would very much appreciate it, because I've never worked on a like an ATM. It's ridiculous. So that's it. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we'll put the links in the description, and hopefully somebody can reach out and help you out there. But it's a good point to bring up, because I was thinking what has been the story of Bitcoin Cash over the last 5 years? Not even the last year, but over the last 5 years, right? That basically on the downside, there's been 3 forks, and you can kind of call it 4 if you count CoinFlex. There's like 4 major disasters, so nearly one a year, basically, particularly with people losing, money, or the community being in strife, having a split, people leaving the coin in disgust, all this stuff, right? There's been a lot of trauma in that 5 years. But on the other hand, despite that, there has been a bunch of good work done to avoid those problems for the next 5, I think. So the community has established an independent brand. You have to remember, at the time of the fork, it was not known, like, what's the ticker going to be? Are we going to be listed on all the exchanges? Okay, we had the orange logo, and then the orange logo with the wings, and then changing the direction of the B, and then swapping to green and getting rid of the wing. All that took time and effort and community sort of decision making and momentum to get changed. There's now the chip process. The community has its own narratives. They're not all sitting around wondering about what's going on in BTC so much anymore. The discussion forums, obviously everything was heavily censored at that time. Everyone was in disarray with our Bitcoin banning people and so on and so forth. Now you've got this show, you've got the BCH Hangouts, you've got tons of Telegram groups, you've got our BTC and our Bitcoin Cash, you've got all that stuff, right? And there's been a bunch of tech upgrades at the same time, like scaling has been improving. So despite all of the chaos, a lot of stuff has got done. And I think particularly in this last year, like with your ATM project, I've seen a lot of emerging projects, right? And they haven't necessarily delivered a huge, payoff just yet. But in my observation in the community, you can see loads of people who kind of come out of the woodwork who are starting to spin up all these projects and ideas. There is a sense, to me at least, and despite the price decline, that we're attracting people who are serious about the project and who are committed and are bought into the vision and are going to stick around, right? Like Fiendish Crypto is a great example. We've seen Callisti, maybe Bitcoin Payment Module, Bitcoin JSON. A lot of these people who maybe they've been involved a little bit longer. I'm not saying that they've only been around for 1 year, but in that last year, you can really see these projects starting to bubble away and build up. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think, not to throw anyone under the bus or undermine anyone, but I think of the names you've mentioned, like Aaron from Bitcoin Payment Module and Bitcoin JSON have been top tier people. As far as like just getting stuff out and driving the excitement and showing the like benefits, features, just cool things that you can do with it. Fantastic. And just aside from that, I don't know if hello Bitcoin Jason, nice to see you. Mark and Ryan too. Like,
I was gonna say, yeah.
And Sunny. Oh my god, I can't believe. Yeah, fantastic. Those and they're all folks that I've noticed definitely show up and be much more vocal in the past year.
And some of the smart BCH people as well, like the MythSwap team, the Block NG team.
Well, Kazumi has been around for a while, pre-Smart BCH, so I'm massive shout out to her. She is a good asset, I think. I don't know her personally, but what she puts out, fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. And we've just had such a great run, I think, of people joining the community and being prepared to build 2DP says and us. Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, I mean, I never had any doubts that we wouldn't be sitting here in a year's time, but from the outside, you don't know that, right? You don't know whether I'm going to just, oh yeah, the price has gone down another 30%. Let me just give up. Like that's obviously possible. You can't, there's no way to prove that except actually deliver and do it. And I think the key aspect to a lot of this stuff is how unfunded a lot of it is as well too. Bitcoin Cash is not a scene where millions of dollars of VC money is going into. If there's very little funding for anyone, people are just doing it on their own dollar or with their own resources or with money that they scrape together from the community, or maybe a flip starter here and there, right? But even then, that's still money that's coming from the community. It's not VCs. Things are not getting bought out by big money, and as a result, money is not being squandered for the most part. I mean, maybe the CoinFlex disaster is a bit of an exception, but in general, people are pretty savvy with how they're using their money because they don't have a lot of it to just splash around. And a lot of the, the projects, the infrastructure and so on is not going to be owned or controlled or have interest behind it that are going to want to take things in a different direction other than what's good for the community in the coming years. So I think that's pretty critical as well too. And then, so the question becomes, that was the last 5 years. What are we looking for in the next 5 years as a result of all these learnings and disasters and so on? I think for me, clearly we want to avoid any more forks and hopefully any more disasters. If we can sort out the CoinFlex one, then hopefully that can be the last one. If there's got to be, like, it was already a lower tier of disaster, basically, that a whole chain split was a bigger problem than CoinFlex. So CoinFlex, even as bad as it has been, is still trending in the right direction, basically. And if we can get I'm sure there will still be problems. Obviously, there's never not going to be problems, right? But if things start getting localized down to smaller sort of companies or individual disagreements or problems in the scene, as opposed to the whole direction of the coin, then that's going to be massive, because given 5 years of momentum without those things, like, we've done pretty good with 5 years with those problems. So I can see that would be huge. I want to see some more attention onto BCH, the marketing, now that the central stuff is starting to settle down. And obviously we're going to be part of that, hopefully, but other people as well too, finding ways to break through the narrative. And I think as BTC is dying, that's kind of happening as it is. Proof of concept in the Caribbean, if we can really get some legal tender laws going there, or if adoption can really go viral, maybe with a bit of a rising price, that could be huge. And finally, just some consumer apps. I want to see a couple of things really just take off, sort of like the MetaMask Ethereum style of things. So yeah, that's why I think is really quite important. And I'm just going to quickly swap my internet out because it's being a bit laggy here. But yeah, what do you think? What are we going to need in the next 5 years?
All right. Well, to hop on that last point, I very much agree. We need more viral consumer apps. And to hijack this one too, there was a project that I contributed to a while ago, like I think a year and a couple months ago, where they were doing a drop-in plugins for Minecraft where it would give users a wallet. The way that was set up was a custodial solution, but like, Minecraft is massive, not just in like kids, although it is, but like so many of these like just YouTube celebrity folks. Oh, we've lost Jeremy. Hello, welcome to... Oh, there we go. So if anyone wants to contribute to that, I'll also send a link there. That'd be fantastic. I just want to make it non-custodial. Like, the node operator shouldn't be able to take everyone's funds. Marketing, although I think the organic marketing is probably the best. It makes it unavoidable. Yeah, I want to see more consumer apps for sure, especially with games and stuff. And I think we would like that would help marketing, and because you'd get like YouTubers who play those games who are like, yeah, I want to use this mod pack or something, and then all of a sudden you have 100,000 fucking 12-year-olds who are like, oh, what's this about? Yeah, it's just money, bro. Man, that was a fantastic ad. I want to see more of those in the next 5 years. Someone put that in the Super Bowl. Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we called out the Super Bowl for having all this hype about, oh, crypto is the future, and nobody did an ad of here's me paying with crypto, right? That It's money, bro, would have been killer. People would have been loving it. And the funny thing is that now crypto, the price has crashed since that Super Bowl. And I saw it. The people, FTX, are still running that ad of Larry David saying, crypto is like not going to work, like the wheel and the fork and whatever. And just the chat is just everybody saying Larry was right. And yeah, well, I mean, in the end, he's probably not going to be. But as it stands now, yeah, he was right. And that was just such a stupid gimmick to be so much FOMO. Don't miss out. You're an idiot if you're going to miss out kind of thing. So that's 5 years. Well, here we go. So this is another thing we're going to see in the next 5 years is a lot more inflation, presumably. So UK, in the UK, Truflation, who are sort of a non-government, independent, I guess, assessor of inflation, have announced that in the UK, inflation is at 13.72%. So this is just to keep in mind that 1 year ago, even, I mean, I'm sure we were saying that inflation was going to be increasing, but even 1 year ago, it was 2% inflation. That's the target, blah, 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 blah. And like, it's now at 14%. It's gone up 7x what everybody thought was the standard acceptable range or whatever at that, like for the last 10 years or whatever it's been, 2% inflation. That's been the narrative, which is now finally blowing apart. So that's 10% higher than it was a year ago. And it's 68% higher than the Office for National Statistics in the UK, who said that it was 8.2%. So that's already ridiculously high. But they're still underestimating it, of course. And I think to me, it really just shows that even the fact that these Truflation people, I don't know much about what they're doing. All I know is I found them on Twitter and I thought, yeah, great. They're doing a really professional job seemingly, but people need to get this analysis from somewhere that is in the government because everybody knows that the government numbers are so manipulated. And so
Changing the definition of recession.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, yeah, the definition of a vaccine that got changed. And then it was the definition of 2 quarters of negative GDP. That's a recession. That's been the way it's been for however long. Now, suddenly that's at issue. And just these kind of weird word games and manipulate. It's so blatant. It's so blatant. How can people not see this? I think they can see it, to be honest. I think people
I've been saying this for months. I think at this point, they're literally just pissing in our faces, going, we're going to do it because no one stopped us, bitch. Like, do something about it. Until then, you're peasants. Know your place.
It is pretty blatant.
Yeah.
I think. And well, that's something we can predict for next year's BCH day. Inflation is going to be higher. I think that's my prediction, right? What are we at now? 14% according to the Real Talk stats, 8% according to the government stats. Yeah, I would probably put a bit of BCH on the fact that I am, I guess, by owning BCH, that in a year's time, both of those numbers are going to be higher, both the official and the unofficial number. And people just can't deny it, really. You just see it around you in your everyday. Like, it doesn't really matter what the TV says. If people can see in their own bank account that the money is not going as far, or they can't afford to get their kid a teddy this week or whatever, right? It's as simple as that.
What's the current BCH inflation rate?
It's 1.7 or 1.8%, I think, off the top of my head.
I thought it was more than that.
No. We're already Bitcoin, both BTC and BCH, it's already down to, it's like 1.6%. We've already got 19 million coins out, more than 19 million. And the last 2 million are going to tail off over the next, whatever it is, 120 years or 100 years. But it goes from, it's a 2% for another year or two. And then, yeah, it's dropping down to in 2024 to under 1%, I think.
Okay. Cool.
That's gonna be huge though. That halvening is gonna be freaking massive. If we get another year like we already have, inflation's already a mainstream story. If we get another year of mega inflation and then crypto halvening hype starts up, it's gonna be monster, right? It has to be.
Yeah. Kind of tangential. How do you think that people's career habits will change? Because if people are already encouraged to find a new job every 2 years to beat wage stagnation, then an increasing inflation rate would make it so that they'd seek more jobs faster, right?
I don't think so. I think the opposite. I think when it's a high inflation environment, things become more uncertain.
So you
And
seek the
people
stability.
people are going to be less willing to take risks. Instead, they're just going to sort of tighten their belts a little bit. Of course, at a certain point, that will become unfeasible, and the pressure is going to ramp up on employers to keep providing pay increases, which are going to get passed on to consumers, which the merry-go-round goes around and around, and everybody gets impacted, right? But I think that's what I would see happening. I would see people being more conservative in their career choice changes, and then on top of that, there's going to be less people in the workforce overall, because if people drop out or they have problems or whatever, there's been so many government programs and stuff trying to cover these changes. I guess it depends where you are, what the situation is, etc., right? But like we were talking about Hayden Otto a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying about in Australia, and they had all these different programs, right?
They had it here
People are
too,
just
yeah.
That's right, exactly. And so you can even see it's more in the news as well too. Just the government says, "Oh, we're going to print this money, or we're going to give these handouts to fight inflation." It's like dumping gasoline on the fire. It's so stupid. But of course, anybody who's a pleb and doesn't figure it out, well, they're going to just swallow that. But they're going to take the money, and the people who do figure it out are going to take the money anyway. Because why would you not, right?
Man, when COVID first hit, we were doing like it was called CERB, so it was the COVID Emergency Relief Benefit, and it was a completely like honor system when they released it. So anyone could sign up, and you would get, I think it was $2,000. I can't remember if that was every month or every 2 weeks, but it was a decent amount. It was more than you would make if you got paid minimum wage. So the people that were making minimum wage, which is a significant amount of the workforce in my province, left their jobs. And then because such a large amount of people dishonorably claimed CERB, they released some kind of I don't know, some bill passed where it was like essentially gives them authority to collect or stop, like put a freeze on your bank account, collect your pay, all this stuff. But if you don't acknowledge that you owe the debt for 6 years, and this isn't just like a statute of limitations thing, this is written into the law. If you just don't acknowledge it ever, you don't owe that debt. So this feels like one of those weird collections agencies things where it's like, are you so-and-so? Who's asking?
Yeah.
It just seems so ridiculous. Like it's like a 5th grade game. Like children could have figured out a better system than this.
That's right. And not to mention the fact that in these kind of scenarios, when you have those loopholes, yeah, like I was saying, people are just gonna jump through them, and you're just throwing gasoline on the fire, and you have to pay the enforcement cost is also a cost.
Yeah.
So the government has to not only worry about handing out all this cash to everybody, but chasing around everybody to see whether they were doing it right or not. That's also a cost and adding to the inflation and the problems. Bitcoin Jason says businesses here are struggling to retain staff in Australia. No doubt. And I think that's going to happen more and more everywhere. It's just apathy is going to be on the rise among the workforce, particularly young people. I was reading an article the other day about in China, they have they had lying flat, right? Which is, I can't remember the Chinese name, tongue ping or something like that. And it's basically people just getting to this kind of doomer point of just what the hell is the point of all this? I can't make any economic headway. China obviously has massively harsh lockdowns, and on top of that, they have problems with their demographics, with so many young people and not too many old people that they need to support, which is compounded by the culture in China, where like everywhere in the world you're supposed to sort of look after your parents, but that's very, very strongly embedded in China, right? And so people are in a position where they can't do that and they feel like a failure. And then you have demographic problems where you have too many men and not enough women, so people kind of can't really couple up because of the one child policy and other cultural issues around that, right? So, and all this stuff is just adding up onto the young people just doing this thing called lying flat, where they're just like, look, I'm just going to rot on the couch basically, and there's no point really doing anything. And once they've got to that point of nihilism, who's going to motivate them to do anything? Nobody. And it's escalated even further with this other thing. I can't remember the Chinese name for it, but it's basically called let it rot, which is even a step further, which is like, I just generally have just opted out. I don't care what you threaten me with, like just put me in jail or something, because if I don't care about getting fit or having a house or having any money or a career, or like if I don't care about anything, there's nothing you can threaten me with. So good luck, basically. I mean, that's going to be the most extreme case, right?
That's
Everywhere
gotta
it's not
be
so authoritarian, but
yeah, that's gotta be comforting to some extent. But I hope that they at least rot on their politician's couch, not their own, not their parents. Like, go make it uncomfortable for someone.
that's a hard thing to sell. That's a hard sell in China, especially because
Yeah,
it's
that's
so.
fair.
I mean, we saw how things worked out in Canada. It didn't, it wasn't even that great there, let alone in China. If you just protesting, the government just comes out with the tanks straight away. There's no negotiating. It's just
Yeah, I will say Canadians did a pretty good job at making people uncomfortable, though. It's like
Yeah.
2 months.
Yeah. They do. Yeah. I mean, that was very, very impressive. And certainly it was ironic or interesting in a sense that the protest came from the truckers, right, who managed all the logistics. So of course, they did a great job of the logistics of the protesting, right? It wasn't like a flash in the pan thing. They were dug in. But yeah, anyway, all that is to say, I think that's the extreme end of the wedge. But I predict a similar thing. I saw some stats the other day. It was something like they did a survey of people who, what do they think about the economy? And it was something like people in the age bracket 18 to 29, 1% of them said it was going, 0% said excellent on a scale of 5 options, 0% said excellent, 1% said good, 29% or something said medium, a bunch said bad, and a lot said very bad, right? It was literally like 1% of young people. I mean, I'm in that category. You're in that category. We're under 30, right? And that's just the sentiment. Is it's clearly not, and this is not people who are economic geniuses or who've had time to see the world go in several cycles. This is a generation that has grown up either with or in the aftermath of the 2008 recession, etc., etc. People just know that shit's bad. Everybody's playing on their phone or whatever instead of going out, getting a job and having a good time. And they know that that's not right.
Well, the phone is the good time, right? It's
That's right.
the dopamine fix.
But people know that. I think people have it the wrong way around. Like older people can sometimes have this perspective, like young people are just addicted to their phones because it's addictive and they're, stupid burnouts or whatever. But I'd say it's the other way around. Young people just, well, not to mention any lockdowns or anything, but going outside is not that great of an option in a lot of cases, a lot of places, right?
I saw a meme yesterday that was like old people complaining, why don't the kids go outside anymore? And then it was like the outside they created, and it was concrete and parking lots and fucking city shit.
Yeah, exactly. Pollution in China, for instance. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. Bitcoin payment module also just chipping in that places just can't find staff. Yeah, all the food courts and whatever. Young people just don't give a shit, and that's
Well,
just
no,
what
no,
that's
no,
just
no.
what's happened.
It's not just that. $10 an hour isn't going to cut it.
Well, not in an inflation with so much, inflation. Like, yeah, it's just not gonna. Minimum wage is not going to keep up with whatever is actually feasible, and yeah, those companies are not necessarily going to jack up prices. Anyway, that's a lot of an economic analysis. I think I've said my piece here, but yeah, I think that's good, and I think the listeners will resonate with that segment. To be honest, I think it'll be interesting in a year's time to see where things are at, but it's pretty easy to bet on worse, basically. All right, next one.
Wait, no, hold on. We can't
Oh, go
change
on.
slides yet. I have a question
Okay,
about this
all right.
last point.
Yeah.
What do you mean disposable luxury?
Oh, right. Okay. So I was going to say, like, is this high inflation? People have this narrative that in crypto is this big inflation hedge, right? Everybody's going to buy crypto to preserve their money from getting inflated away to shit, right? But the opposite has happened. As inflation has got higher, much to Peter Schiff's delight, crypto has done worse. And the reason, which I'm not as surprised about, but a lot of people seem surprised about, was the fact that people were basically saving in BTC. It's not an essential thing to do. It's just kind of a luxury, right? People put some money in Bitcoin, like, I'm going to be rich in 10 years, store of value, whatever, right? And then once hard times start hitting, what's the first thing they do? Do they look at, oh man,
They sell their children.
Well, that's certainly the way some people treat their Bitcoin hodling stash, right? Is they just get rid of it. Why? Because the reality is they've got to pay their bills. So they're looking at their assets and they're thinking, I don't have much cash. Oh, I've got this Bitcoin sitting around. It's kind of done poorly. And I don't have the time to wait around for 10 years to hopefully one day be rich. I got to pay my bills now. So I'm going to sell off my crypto. And if you've been gambling in all these crappy as coins, Dogecoin or whatever, maybe you get a stimulus check, you're feeling good, you throw it in Dogecoin. A couple of months later, you're like, damn, my bank account's pretty empty and I can't be bothered to get a job, or there aren't jobs or whatever. I'm just going to sell off all this crypto. So it kind of has to go past a point of complete nihilism before crypto benefits from an inflationary narrative. That's my
You think
opinion.
people have to get like very desperate?
Yeah, well, that's right. And that's where coins that you can pay with will come into their own, because people will get to the point of just, holy shit, I cannot leave my money, any money I have, like in Argentina or in Venezuela or Turkey or whatever. When things are hyperinflating, things have to get pretty bad with the hyperinflating currency before the next best alternative becomes better, because it's not about if like a one-to-one comparison, is this better? Because if so, crypto could probably already win today. The switching cost and people's inbuilt sort of laziness or unwillingness to try new things means that it has to be very painful to not make a change before people will make a change. It can't merely be better to switch. It has to be currently painful, right? That's my theory. That's just the reality.
Yeah, I agree, but that is so black-pilled. Like, I don't want to accept it, because the amount of suffering that humans will have to go through before they're like, well, maybe I should try this other thing, is ridiculous. You have people now going, hey, this is an option. If you just give it a shot, then the amount of suffering that could be maneuvered, yeah. Well, not even alleviated. Not just not
Avoided.
anymore. Yeah, suffering coming to us, right?
Yeah, and of course. But it doesn't matter. I mean, you and I are here. We're shouting to the high heavens about this every week. Even the whole crypto community is, basically. And there's still loads of people being like, haha, Larry David was right. Crypto's a scam, right?
Well, that is pretty funny.
What are we going to do about it? Can we get the message out there any faster? We're doing what we can. It's just people have to wake. This is something that I've learned in my own life, and just I think in general people can relate to, it doesn't, like, it's a brick wall. It's just talking to a brick wall, trying to tell somebody something who doesn't want to understand, or who can't get it, or who the stars haven't aligned in their universe for them to see the pattern that you are seeing, or whatever it is. You're just talking to a brick wall, and you can be talking to them for years, literally, even as every bit of evidence proves you right all the way along. They're not going to listen. But then one day things are going to get bad enough for them that suddenly it's like, you were right. But of course, are they going to say, oh, you were right? I mean, if they're, it's very positive. Like, you should value highly people who come to you and say, look, you were right. And you should try and be that person as well yourself. When you're wrong and you realize after 2 years or whatever, you should go to whoever was telling you and say, look, you were totally right. I'm ready to listen. Tell me, like, I'm listening. Tell me now, right? You should proactively be that person, because the majority of the time, people, even by the time they realize they were wrong, they just try and forget about it, sweep it under the rug, and that's that, right? So you should look out for that, I think, on both sides of the equation. People who come to you and say, I'm ready to listen, you should jump on that. And also, when it's your turn, because it happens to everybody, we're all wrong about some stuff some of the time, and somebody is telling us like the red warning lights are going off for them, you got to acknowledge that once you come around to seeing it their way, basically. All right, next slide. That's got to be enough about inflation. Oh, here we go. Classic. All right, Tesla sold 75% of its BTC. So this was about, I don't know, a week or two ago. Elon, after much fanfare 1 year ago, buying the Bitcoin, and it's all going to be great, we're going to the moon. There was all this story about, it's going to create corporate FOMO, right? The same as El Salvador. El Salvador's bought in. Now every other country up the list is slowly going to start piling in because they don't want to be the last ones left out. Well, in both of those cases, it just hasn't happened.
Yeah.
It was so much hype that every Apple will be next and yada, yada, yada. Complete lies, all of it, which I think we correctly predicted on this show. So things have been sold at a loss. So it turns out he cashed out 75% of his BTC in his filings, quarterly earnings report or whatever, for 963 million, and he has 218 million left. So he bought it in for 1.5 billion, so roughly a $300 million loss locked in so far. We don't know the exact price that they bought in and everything, but that's roughly the numbers, right? So they've lost about 300 million out of 1.5 billion. What's that, about 20%? Yeah, 20%. So that's obviously not a good return. Could have been worse. I mean, they could have lost a lot more, definitely. If they were naive buying it at the top, they definitely could have lost more. But on the other hand, it's like, okay, you've taken the L there. And Elon was kind of saying, well, I didn't sell any Dogecoin, but I don't think he had any in Tesla to sell anyway. As far as I was aware, the Tesla only had the BTC, and then he himself had Doge and Ethereum and BTC. So whatever he's up to himself is not going to come out in the SEC filings and stuff. So, and plus he's half busy at the moment trying to battle away with Twitter over these stocks. So it's just kind of like, we're just taking the L here, guys. Like, it was all a lie yet again. BTC, store of value, complete lie. Medium of exchange, that didn't work out. They stopped accepting it for payments. Lightning Network didn't matter, complete garbage. I don't know. I don't think there could be a stronger case to the world that Bitcoin BTC is not the one. But they're going to have to figure that out in their own time, basically.
Is there ever a time where you're like, and I'm not giving you shit, I'm not trolling or anything, I'm just curious. Like, do you ever get, even if it's just like a split second where you're like, BTC is shit and BCH came from shit, what are we doing? Like, why are we using a shitty... But then, again...
No.
Okay,
I don't know. Not really. I mean, if I was... I don't know. Maybe some people have the... I guess I use the coin. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Is that I make payments in BCH and it works. It's fine. It's great. It's actually super easy with people that are anonymous on the internet that I've never met and I don't know anything about. Just once you have two people who understand, okay, here's the history, here's blah blah blah, BCH is the real Bitcoin, here's how you hold on to your private keys, here's how an address works, etc. Like that's a lot of foundational work. But as soon as you have two people over that hurdle, it is seamless. It is no problems. It's the easiest thing in the world. And so I guess that never makes me think, what are we doing here? It's not going to work out. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if I would ever, like, I don't. Oh, hey, thanks for the follow. We just got one of those alerts that came through. That's
let's
wild.
go.
Yeah, first one. Oh shit. Yeah, I don't think I would ever go so far as to be like, where are we going with this, or like, yeah, it's just like. I think there's something about the way that the network works that breeds some kind of maximalism. And the more I'm involved, the more I think that. Because I think, well, maybe I'm also just being a little more arrogant in experience, right? But like, yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think about this more. Just
every coin is like that in the sense that people who are down the BTC rabbit hole, you cannot convince them. There's nothing you can do. It's the same thing as I was saying before. And because somebody might be convinced because they are plugged into the certain community, right? So whatever Lightning Network people, like Brian Harrington, right, that we talked to, it was like, you know, he didn't. Nothing was really seeping through the cracks in the wall there. I was wondering if we were going to find some, like, it's like Bitcoin's the best. And the reason that we don't like Bitcoin from his perspective was because we tried it 6 years ago when the tools were bad, and that now the tools are better. And if we tried it now, we would be blown away. That's got nothing to do with it.
If by tools he meant developers.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe, but it was like none of the you know, if somebody's just looking at something through a certain angle, a certain lens, then it doesn't even occur to them like what else is in that same field of vision, let alone the fact, to use a metaphor, that you don't know you can't see behind you, basically, is the idea. So even if somebody has blinkers on and they're looking at a certain thing, getting them to widen those blinkers even a little bit is already an uphill battle, let alone getting to kind of 180-degree vision of looking in front, let alone the idea that there is something behind them that they can't see, they can't perceive that, right? That's kind of the difficulty. And so people who are heavily enmeshed in Ethereum, right, are like, Ethereum is the king, this is going to pop off, the merge is going to rocket us past Bitcoin BTC, and it might. In fact, I think that's probably going to happen at some point, right? But if you say to them, like, have you bought a sandwich with Ethereum ever? They will have no answer except it's ultrasound money and don't worry about that, scaling the merge, whatever. And you're just kind of like, the way I was thinking about it actually the other day was this idea, right, that the difference between the Bitcoin BTC and the Bitcoin BCH community is the time frame. The Bitcoin BCH community is at the left and right of the bell curve, right? Where they think, can I use this today? Yes. And will this be good in 15 years? Yes. And that's the two timeframes they're looking at. It's working now, and is it going to work when it goes massive? Yes. Right? And they're not so much worried about the middle. Bitcoin BTC people are the opposite. They think, is this working now? Well, not really. Is it going to work in 3 to 5 years or whatever? Yeah, we're going to fix up Lightning. It's going to be killer. Everyone's going to get on board with the network effect, et cetera, and then they're not thinking, well, what about in 20 years once the entire planet is onboarded? Is this going to fly? They blanked out on that, right? So that's the difference. Bitcoin BCH people are like, it works now and it's going to work at planetary scale, and that's what we care about. And then BTC people are like, we're going to make it work for a few people soon. So that's kind of what their vision is. So that's why they can't understand the BCH side at all, because if you say to them it's not working today, then they think, no, we're making it work. It's improving. It's moving in the right direction. And if you tell them it's not going to work at planetary scale, they say, yeah, but don't worry, the network effect's going to kick in, and there'll be whatever, you know.
Okay, yeah.
All right, next topic. We've got.
Oh, you
yeah,
got the
here we go.
screenshot. Nice.
This is a classic. So we just had some news that Craig Wright has won, in inverted commas, another legal case. I don't want to go too much into the details of all this because I certainly am not an expert in what's going on, but I think it was worth reading out that he was suing Peter McCormack over the fact that Peter McCormack basically called him a fraud on his podcast a bunch of times. And so Craig said, look, you called me a fraud in front of millions of people. That's defamation, and sued him in the UK, I guess because Peter is British and Craig is, I think, living in the UK as well too. So I guess that was the place to do it. Plus, the defamation laws in the UK are quite weak. So the judgment of all this came out, and here's what the final conclusion was, according to the judge. Quote, for these reasons, I conclude that A, Publication 16 meant that there were reasonable grounds for questioning or inquiring as to whether the claimant had fraudulently claimed to be Satoshi. This was defamatory at common law. B, Mr. McCormack is responsible for the republication of Publication 16 by the posting of the recording on YouTube. C, each of publications 1 to 10 and 12 to 16 caused serious harm to the reputation of Dr. Wright. D, however, because he advanced a deliberately false case and put forward deliberately false evidence until days before trial, he will recover only nominal damages. Accordingly, I shall enter judgment for Dr. Wright on the claim in the sum of £1. I shall therefore invite written submission in light of this judgment on the question of injunctive or other relief and on costs. End quote. So basically what the judge is saying is, okay, I don't know what all these exhibits were, right? But presumably that's episodes of the podcast or clips or whatever the hell, whatever, you know, where he was calling him a fraud. The judge is saying, okay, you did just basically call him a fraud, like in the public, and you maybe didn't necessarily have a bulletproof case for that. Like Peter McCormack, I know, dropped his truth defense, not because it wasn't viable, but just because it would have been too expensive for him to actually hire enough lawyers and, you know, hash it all out for another 6 months or whatever. So basically the judge was like, well, okay, on technical grounds, I have to give the win to Craig. But the reality of the matter was that the judge also knew that Craig was basically trying to run a scam because, as he says, you've put forward a deliberately false case and you've also put in a lot of false evidence. So I'm going to give you the technical win while doing everything I can to make the point that basically you lost. That's how I take it. And Peter McCormack said on Twitter afterwards that he was quite pleased about this result. And so I guess this final part about, like, Craig could be in a position to say, well, I need to get legal costs, basically, that, okay, it's a £1 loss, but my legal fees were $500,000, so you owe me that because I had to sue you to get this, like, £1 or whatever. But it seemed like Peter McCormack's reaction was that he was pretty happy with the result. So clearly his lawyers felt like he was not going to be on the hook for legal costs, presumably, right? And I mean, of course, as the chat is saying, Craig, this does nothing to prove that he's Satoshi, which he's always claiming the court cases are going to do, when it's literally like, if he wins, he still loses, basically. I mean, he might win on some weird technical legal ground or whatever, but it's always like this, where the court is like, okay, well, you won £1, good job, but also you're basically putting in false evidence. So we haven't found anything substantive in what you've put up. And Two Dick Pete says on the fact that he also can't appeal. Apparently, if you win, you can't appeal. So that's kind of just closed off that avenue forever. Maybe that's another reason Peter McCormack is happy. Do you have any thoughts about any of this?
No one has caused more serious harm to the reputation of Dr. Wright than Dr. Wright. Also, it feels so fucking weird to call Craig doctor at all. What?
Well, he's got so many PhDs or degrees or whatever, right? So got to put some respect on that name. Well, just another proof, I guess, that having pieces of paper doesn't necessarily make you ultra intelligent or insightful, but just my opinion.
Was there ever a point in time where we called Craig a liar and a fraud? Did we ever say the phrase Craig Wright is a liar and a fraud?
On this podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
For sure.
Okay.
Or I have. I'm sure I have, but I know I did even in the episode with Ryan Giffen back when he first asked me about episode 15 or something. Yeah, definitely I have. But the difference is hopefully he just doesn't figure it out and sue us. But even if he does, we've got such a small audience. That was part of the case, as far as I'm aware, that basically Peter McCormack had hundreds of thousands of Twitter followers and blah, 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 right? So that's all like a part of it. So anyway, I don't know. Maybe we need to be more worried about that if we blow up, but whatever. And I mean, which is one other slight angle to this is the fact that Peter McCormack has said on his show in passing that Roger Ver has funded some of his defense. So that's kind of a weird situation because Peter also is kind of after Roger a little bit in the sense that he thinks he's kind of scamming with Bcash and all that stuff. But on the other hand, he's kind of got to admit, okay, Roger's actually a pretty decent dude. And it also kind of plays into the fact that Roger and Craig at a certain point were on the same page with Big Block Bitcoin and blah, 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 blah. And so maybe Roger is willing to fund Peter's defense, not only because it's better for crypto as a whole if Craig just wastes his money and doesn't get legal wins just by bullying people out, but on the other, it's also a bit personal, right? If he can fund Peter to a victory, then that's kind of sucked in, to Craig. So I don't know.
I will say, and I'm sure the audience knows this, I don't like either of these dudes. I recently watched McCormack go on Richard Hart's, I don't know if it was a podcast or what it was, but it was some of the most childish banter I had ever seen. And I was kind of hoping for more.
Was this a recent stream or was it the historical one? Because there's a classic one where Peter goes on Richard's stream and Richard is sort of prepared to debate. He's geared up. And Peter comes in and just says, "You're a scammer," about 500 times.
Right after Giacomo.
I don't know what it was after, but he basically crashes the stream.
Yeah.
And calls Richard Hart a scammer 100 times. And Richard's eventually like, "Well, you came on my stream, so."
He didn't even send the invite to Peter. He had sent it to someone else. And ridiculous.
Wormed his way in there or something. And I don't know. That was a few years ago though, but
okay.
I mean, it is still just ridiculous that crypto is this strange industry, right? Where a lot of it goes down on these weird online
you call yourself a
hangouts and stuff,
journalist,
right?
dude? You're just you're a scammer.
Well, yeah, it's just weird because even when Peter is right, he has a hard time both deliberately and not deliberately kind of winning the argument, basically, because even if he's got the right end of the stick, he won't necessarily have the debating skills or the backing facts or whatever to really win the debate, especially against someone like Richard, who, even though he's sometimes wrong, is a very good debater.
He's quick.
There's a big distinction which people need to understand. I'm sure everybody does understand, between being right and being good at debating. You can be very good at debating even if you're often wrong. And if you're good at debating, you can easily just basically bully out people who, even if they've got the right end of the stick, you're just better. So you can just shut them out and make them look like an idiot. And Richard is very good at that. And Peter is the opposite. It's not only is he wrong probably more often, he's also less good at debating. So Richard can just kind of shit on him in that way, even if Peter is right. So plus Peter himself was always talking about, I'm such a moron and I just have smart people on my podcast, which makes it even harder for him to go toe to toe with someone on crypto or whatever.
I think he only does that because Joe Rogan is the largest podcast in the world, and he frequently also says, "Hey, I'm a moron." And then when Joe gets shit, he'll come back and be like, well, I'm saying I'm a moron. And I've seen Peter do the same kind of thing where he's like, I don't claim to be a genius. Like, no, you're just covering your ass because you don't even want to put the work in to figure something out. And we know this by evidence of him trying to do like a lightning node setup or a wallet or whatever the hell that was.
Well, I think Peter, but it's interesting that you raised that point because I have seen Peter has said that he admires Joe Rogan a lot. It makes sense, right? Joe's got the biggest podcast. Peter's in podcasting, so he's obviously going to watch his stuff. And he said that he's watched Joe Rogan's show. He's taken notes. He's tried to learn how to be a better podcaster from. So maybe that was part of what he took away from it. I'm a little less harsh on him in the sense that I think, yeah, okay, you can maybe say it's a defense mechanism, but I think he also is sort of genuinely self-aware of I don't know things. Where he falls apart then is he's very willing to say, I need to trust somebody. So I trusted these people who happen to be Peter Todd and Adam Back and whoever's in the BTC circle. And therefore he just swallows all their stuff because not only can he not debate them, he's also not willing to either host a discussion between them and somebody who will debate them or know enough to contest it, or he's not willing to even listen to somebody like Roger Ver. You know, he could have Roger on his show and he could say, right, I don't know enough to debate Nick Carter or whatever. Nick Carter's a bad example, but I don't know, whoever, Tone Vase or something, as if there haven't been enough of those debates already anyway. But like he could just look up a debate of Tone Vase and Roger and just see Tone Vase getting destroyed and then figure it out himself. But no, he's too much of a crowd follower, I think. Anyway,
right.
That's enough
from the
that's enough about
clowns.
that. Yeah. Next one. That's definitely enough about that.
Oh, more clowns.
It's Clown World, mate. Clown World on Twitter. Everybody
Well, not
check
Hayden.
that out.
Hayden's good, but Mark.
No, Hayden's great. He was on that show. So we had CoinFlex, the latest. Again, I put this kind of at the end. I agree with you. Like, sucks for everyone who's involved. I hope everyone gets their money back, and I hope Mark Lamb figures out a solution. But we do have to cover it here because it is relevant. A lot of people are going to be interested. But this CoinFlex stuff, like, I've kind of mentally moved on. So Hayden, who we had on the show, obviously had a interview with Mark Lamb to find out what's going on at CoinFlex. CoinFlex have cut their staff and their costs by 50%. Under stress, obviously. They don't want to burn away all their runway on engineers. And they're supposedly going to have this vote that the locked 90% of coins, which I think people just want back as many of those coins as they can get, but instead they're going to have this weird situation of vote on whether that locked 90% can be converted into a combination of RVUSD, Flex coins, and CoinFlex equity, all of which seem pretty unappealing to me, to be honest, because the RVUSD is basically contingent on CoinFlex winning a lawsuit against Roger, who doesn't want to pay. So that remains to be seen and isn't going to be quick in any case. Flex coins, which aren't worth much if the whole of CoinFlex is insolvent, and CoinFlex equity, which is also not worth much if the CoinFlex is insolvent, and you can't even sell it anywhere unless CoinFlex themselves make a market on their platform. Like, it's all bad. Why would you want any of this stuff instead of just 30% of your coins back? I have no idea, but that's their plan. And what they've said is, well, we're going to release our balance sheet so at least people know what the size of the hole is and stuff before they vote on this proposal to do these conversions. But they said that's going to be well in advance of the vote. But on the other hand, they also say locked balance trading is going to be enabled soon. So we're going to get this vote and balance trading soon, but we're also going to get the balance sheet well before that, but we don't have the balance sheet right now. So just none of it adds up. It's just a mess. Obviously they're doing things at the speed or with the competency that they can, but yeah, it doesn't look that great. I got to be honest.
The competency that they can seems like none. It's been a month. Why in the hell is this still an issue? Voting seems like a complete, the worst will happen, right? And they'll be like, well, the community voted for it. I thought this is what you wanted. It's your company. You mismanaged the funds. Take responsibility for it. Distribute the funds how you see fit. Again, it's your company. And then take the backlash for how you do that. Leaving it to a vote just seems like very weak.
Trying to like pass the buck. I mean, I think that it seems to me like, well, as far back as that initial stream where they said, okay, we're going to do this RVUSD or whatever. It just seems like if you and I were in charge of CoinFlex, I mean, this is easy for me to say, obviously. I'm not in that situation.
If I were in charge of CoinFlex, I wouldn't have stolen any money.
Well, yeah, even that. But even if we were in a bad situation, I think, from my perspective at least, the game plan would have been pretty fucking clear. It would have been get the lawyers in the room. First things first, give the smart BCH coins out to Wang or whatever. Even if that's a legally dodgy move or whatever, just fucking do it. Just give them back the money. Why? Because then you've
That's the good thing to do.
Well, it's a good thing to do, but you've solved like 80% of your problem right there. Okay, you're creating some problems with your other traders who are going to say, why did you give this money back? Wasn't it separate? But it's pretty clear that you have the choice between either you piss off the smart BCH community and you have to argue with them and they're pissed off because you lied to them and you said this was separate. And even if we fuck up, the funds are fine and they're all just allocated for you. So you've broken your own promises and you've fucked with them. Or the other option is you deal with the people, the depositors to the exchange who have a legal agreement with you and are mad that, well, why are some of these coins, you know, that we can't basically use them as part of our pot to repay us, right? But the majority of the people are actually not the depositors, it seems. The majority of people who are pissed are the smart BCH people. And on top of that, whatever assets are left, the 10 million is probably a minority share of that, basically. So you get rid of most of the problem with a small amount of money by just giving back smart BCH coins and letting the community power on. And then you're in the position of explaining to the other creditors, oh, look, the smart BCH coins were separate. And you have a whole fucking free army of the community who will find documentation and screenshots and clips and whatever to back you up. So your legal defense is going to be a piss take because you basically have a volunteer, you have the internet working on your side, right? It's like
the power of weaponized autism.
You're going to have RBDC surfacing up all this stuff to help you out. Instead, you're in the opposite situation where you haven't really made any progress with the creditors except to kind of not get in further hot water with them, but you're already in hot water with them anyway. And you've pissed off the whole community and you've obviously got broken promises to that. It's so stupid. It seems to me obvious. Obviously, I'm biased because that's the outcome I would prefer, right? But even if I was one of the creditors, it seems logical to me that I would still come up with that logic and still think that that's what Mark Lamb should do, even if it was against my interest, right? That would still be my opinion, I think.
Yeah.
So, I don't know why he doesn't do that. Originally I had a little bit more sympathy for him, but as time goes on, I'm increasingly like he's too afraid, it seems to me, of getting sued basically by the creditors saying, look, you're the CEO and you just offloaded these coins which we were trying to recoup in a bankruptcy, but he's going to have to deal with that either way. So just dithering around, dragging the process out is not doing him any favors, and it's just creating him headaches in the meantime. So like he's in hot water either way, and at least from my perspective, obviously this is not the legal advice he's received or the risk assessment he's willing to take. It's like because you also got to remember how time plays into this. The longer the smart BCH coins are in his custody, the more fucking pissed everybody gets. Whereas if from the start he'd just dumped off the coins, then he would have. It's just obvious to me, if you're in a situation where you've got two burning fires and one is a small fire and one is a big fire, but one is growing faster, you obviously just put out the fire that is going to be a huge problem later with a small amount of effort now. And then now you're only fighting on one front, right? Fighting on two fronts at the same time. It's just nonsensical. And obviously it's risky for him to just give the coins back and get sued for it later. But he's going to get sued by someone. So he may as well just get most of the people out of the way. Like the smart BCH community, they just want the 100K coins, just give them back, and that's it. And there's so much evidence. Even the fact that they were consistently, here's the address, here's where they are, they're separate. It's obvious, but yeah, I don't know. The only redeeming quality he has at this point is that he's still willing to, in some sense, face the music and go on this live stream. He's still responding in Telegram, and yeah, he's clearly a bit unsure of what he's doing. But
Social
I mean,
media
Roger,
managers, man.
but Roger isn't putting out anything. Roger isn't saying any. He's just shut up completely. So I would love it if he would give more of his side of the story. But I guess he's already out of the line of fire, so he's just gone quiet, and that's probably the best move from his point of view. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
All right, that's enough about that. All right. That's it for the CoinFlex thoughts. Okay, and community comment of the week. Here's a good one. This is a banger. So Sonal in the BCH price chat said, "Imagine if Satoshi came around in 2005 with the quote, guys, I have this idea with P2P money, but for now, just buy my centralized shitcoin. I will figure it out later," laughing emoji. And I just thought this made me laugh so hard when I read it, because it really just gets to the bottom of things, which is obviously the CoinFlex situation, but even just in crypto in general, right? There's things are often released with this. Okay, this is the temporary solution. We're going to sort it out later. Now, of course, people are in a rock and a hard place, particularly in BCH, because everybody is also mad if you promise something and then don't deliver. It's vaporware, right? Like Kim.com has done. Everybody's like, Kim, why did you promise all this shit and then not deliver it? But on the other hand, if you put out the beta, you put out the early version, and you get people going with it, and then there turns out to be problems, people are mad about that too, right? So there is a bit of a balance. But for the point of this comment, which I do strongly agree with, and which I try and do in our own releases, their own stuff that the Bitcoin Cash podcast puts out, is instead of just promising in the future it's going to be great, how about you just zip your lip, focus, get it done, and release it once it's done, and it's done. Bam, it's out there, sorted, right? Why? That was how Satoshi did it. Satoshi didn't. Well, he did publish the white paper, and then 3 months later put out the code, right? But at that time, it was so small that nobody knew any different. He was answering questions, and he even said afterwards, I wrote the code before I published the white paper. So he already had the code basically, maybe not completely rock solid, but it was basically working, and he knew, okay, I can just publish this and like it's good to go, right? That was an after effect. He didn't write the white paper, put it out there, or write half the white paper, or I've got an idea, guys, let alone try and get funding, get buying this in, buying that, now everybody's got like, that's the problem that Flipstarter has as well too, which I mean, I've been a little bit critical of in the past as well, is you just say, I'm going to deliver all this shit, give me the money first. No, it should be the other way around. It should be, I've delivered. I wish there was a way that we could do, maybe it'll come about, that we'll have Flipstarters where people can basically fund the Flipstarter, but you can have a kind of, I don't know, custodian or something like that who sits on the money and says, the Flipstarter is done, now deliver, and then we'll release the money to you. Like that kind of thing, because at the moment you can just get the money and then not deliver, which happens some of the time or a lot of the time, right? So
I think every time we talk about flip starters, and especially flip starters that didn't deliver, I always get a kick, because like I feel like very confident in what I've delivered with my flip starter, which was advertised as like, you're not getting anything in return from this.
But yeah, I mean, but the thing is, yeah, what you're saying is people doing their Flipstarter, they could have done the same thing. You can literally just be upfront and say, I'm going to do my best with this.
This might not work. It's a shot in the dark.
That's right. But the more you promise so that you can try and get a bigger and I don't know why we haven't seen, I mean, it's really just immaturity in the scene. I'm sure it will develop over time, is why, like Mark Falzon, actually, big reps to him, he did kind of implement this model where he did a small Flipstarter, delivered it, then he did a bigger Flipstarter, and he's delivering that, and then maybe he'll do a big one in the future, right? But he will have a track record of building up. You don't just go straight to max money or whatever, right?
Since we have this platform, I'm going to use it to talk some shit.
Yeah, go on.
And please, chat, correct me if I'm wrong, but David Bond hold him accountable. He still needs to deliver on his flip starter.
Yeah,
Had a
he
bunch of
hasn't done
personal
shit.
issues, right? Sure, that's fine. Still deliver. Update at the very least. Colin Enstad as well. Also, I give Colin a little slack because he has a family now. So it was COVID, and then he has a family. So I understand things got whack, but deliver, you sons of bitches. I'm gonna publicly talk shit until you either say, "Hey, I'm not doing it anymore," and then I'll talk shit one more time to be like, "You piece of shit," and then I'll be over it, or until you deliver. But that's
enough.
where we're at.
Absolutely. I think, and Kim.com, he's had a bit of a roast. Kim, what are you doing, mate? Yeah. Like, what's going on? There has been no updates. There's been no announcements. There's been no, it's in progress. Here's a beta. Here's a public demo. Here's nothing, right?
Oh, it's going to change the internet. When?
Yeah, righto. Like Kim Kardashian, I'm going to break the internet. Like, nobody gives a shit, really. And so, Bitcoin payment module says, somebody, dear God, please reimburse our team for what we've already done. Well, it's hard to know how to take that, but this is where the community, I think, needs to learn on both sides, right? One side needs to learn, don't promise a bunch of shit, get some money and not deliver. Don't fucking do that. Just like we said, maybe ask for a small amount if you really need the money, then deliver, then do it in chunks or something. Then at the very least, you've limited the amount of damage you're going to do to yourself in terms of, okay, we only asked for 1 BCH or 5 BCH or whatever, and we didn't deliver. You can probably even just pay the people back if you screw it up and you really, like Hayden Otto, shout out to him, did do that. He had some problems with his flip starter. There was, drama about it. And he said, look, I'll just give the money back. And he did. Banger. Love it. Great work, mate. Then you have people on the other side, and I'm not saying Bitcoin payment module is in this category, but people who sort of approach it from their too engineering focus, and they go in the lab and they build all this stuff, and then afterwards they're kind of like, where's the payoff? No, you got to thread the needle. You got to start releasing beta versions early enough to get market feedback and prove that people are actually going to want it, which was the same reason that I did the first episode of this podcast. I didn't get a nice camera and I just made the shittest 1 hour production job I did. People liked it, so I made it slightly better. I already got, donations on that first episode. That's how people should be iterating their products. And I know this because I'm an engineer, and left to my own devices, I will do what engineers do, which is I'll engineer. I'll go in the lab, I'll work for 2 years, and I'll come out of it with something that nobody needs. That's just, engineers love engineering. So it's about getting product feedback. As like when people talk about MVP, that's what it means. That means you make a website, make it one button with one HTML text, and when they click the button, it sends a message to your phone, and you pretend to be the computer and you fill out whatever. You're not going to have it 10 million users overnight. You're going to have one guy who's going to use it, and you can be the computer and then automate that piece out of it later, right? That's how you should be approaching product development.
I see a comment in the chat here. What about asking miners to support developers? Yeah, you can ask. And then what?
Yeah, so on-chain scaling, welcome to the chat, first-time chatter. This kind of seems like, well, that's what eCash is doing. So if you think that's a good model, go check out. Well, they're asking in the sense that the miners don't have to mine their coin. If they do mine their coin, then that implies that they accept those rules. But the miners are already running a competitive business. They don't. This is what people are always like. It's just a different version of, why don't the whales fund this or do that? Well, the first thing is, the whales don't owe you shit. If the whales are not doing anything, they're busy. And the other thing is, you don't know what they already are funding. There's already is a lot of stuff that they've contributed to, they're funding, they're supporting, they're building, they're looking out for the best interests of the community in all kinds of ways that you don't necessarily see. So then to be coming out and saying, why aren't you doing more, is ridiculous. That's not how it works. The way it works is, if you need a problem, it's like changing the game, If something needs to get done, I'll fucking do it myself. That's the attitude you got to have. If you see a problem, there's two options. I care enough about this that I'm going to go and fix it myself to whatever extent or in whatever way I can, or this is not a problem. There's no other option. You can't ask somebody else to do it for you, because that's not how it works.
It's like, okay, so you want to buy a mining rig, right? and you want to support these developers. Okay, well, just to buy an ASIC now, it's like $6,000. Like, okay, well, there's $6,000 down the drain, and you haven't given a developer a coin yet. Okay, and then what's the electricity? Like, there's so much upfront cost, and you're just in the hole. Like, and then out of the kindness of your heart, you're gonna give like these other people your money, and hope that they'll do something better with it than what you can do. Like, I think more developers should become miners, but that's another topic of discussion.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that really, and that's one of the best, and it's not even really one of the worst things, but it's just one of the most, the whole thing about crypto, especially Bitcoin, is flipping the mentality of responsibility onto yourself. And I think the world doesn't have enough of that. Not your keys, not your coins. It's the first thing. If you give someone else your coins, they're going to run off with them. Sooner or later, some way, somehow, somebody else is going to be holding the coins, and it's going to be their coins. That's just how it goes. So you just got to wake up that it's your responsibility to get it done. And that's the same for the whole ecosystem. It starts with that, but it's like that at every level. You want to get a chip in, you want to get the protocol made better. Where's your chip? Where's your advocacy? Where's the code you've written? You think we need better marketing? What marketing have you done? You think we need the miners to be acting differently? Set up a mining farm and start doing it. You think it's just always the same, basically. All right, meme of the week. We can end with a bit of a positive one. I thought this is a classic. Dr. Parik Patel, BA, CFA, ACCA, Esquire, drpatel.eth.
One of the best Twitter accounts.
Says he had everyone talking about their stocks today, and he's got a graph with two axes. He's got a bought at the top, basically, with a big red line of having lost money, and then a slight little green uptick, and the label, let's fucking go. And that's basically what I was doing at the start of this show with, we're down a ton, but we're up this week. Let's go. It's all sorted. And that's just the funny thing about human psychology. You can be way in the red, but a slight little bit of green, and the hopium and the copium just starts flowing.
We're going to Saturn, boys.
That's it. Exactly. But it's just psychology. People are so starved of something to be hopeful about that a small thing, it's like people's expectations are of the trend to keep going down. So from their point of view, the fact that it started going up is already a huge improvement, even if you're still down in the grand scheme. It's kind of like, well, maybe hope is people see the parabola that it was going down and then it's got flattened out and now it's going up, and they can understand that maybe it's going to keep going up, right?
But
of course, sometimes that doesn't happen.
I hope to get more cheap coins.
I mean, you say that like everybody says that, but the majority of the market disagrees because
I'm
by
buying
definition
at those. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, no, you are, but most people are not, right? So that's just this is a good commentary on the mass market. There's no label here, Jett strategy. This is
blood in the water.
Yeah, exactly. This is Jeremy's like copium graph. Okay, next thing is the message to the community. Do you have a message to the community? What do people need to hear?
I have 2 projects that I don't have time for that definitely need some eyes and hands. So they're not even really my projects. I just already put some work into them. Right now, I'm the only one that has, So if you want to help out, reach out on Telegram's probably the best way to get a hold of me. I do work during the day, so if I don't answer, it is what it is, man. Just be patient.
Yeah, everybody's doing this and that's another thing. I'm going to add that as my part of the message to the community is people who are coming in and saying, why doesn't X person do Z? It's kind of like, do you understand how long this takes? So I don't know whether these people think that everybody's sitting around with 100 million in the bank and just, okay, in between sitting on the beach with supermodels on my yacht, I just did a little bit of coding and maybe I should have done a bit extra. No, it's not like that at all. People have jobs, they have families, they have lives. They want to go out and have a beer on Friday night. They want to, it's just everybody, everything is much scrappier in reality than it seems from the outside. That's true of any tech product, actually. Even Elon Musk has talked about that a bit, where he just says, look, people are always criticizing Tesla for we delayed this or we didn't release that or whatever. And it's like, yeah, every company in the world does that. We just kind of own up to it. And we have a lot more eyes on us. So people track this stuff more closely. But that's true. That's exactly how it is. So if then the people who are contributing, they already know how that goes down, and so they're not the ones you see pointing fingers. The ones pointing fingers are always the one who are not putting in any work themselves, because as soon as you start, you realize actually how much goes into it behind the scenes off people's kind of own backs, right? So what about the royalties from my hit song, Jeremy? Yeah, exactly. You know, let me tell you, when you get 3 Spotify listeners per month, the first thing you do is you cash that 0.01 cents and you go like 50 cent. That's going to be my next hit, straight to the bank with it. That's me. I'm going to be coming out with straight to the bank with it. And you'll all know that, yeah, I'm chilling on the yacht. When you see the podcast from the yacht and not from like my bedroom, you'll know like that's when I'm not putting in enough work.
Hey, I'm gonna post in the chat as the podcast, but
yeah, go on, man. It's all good.
You said monthly listeners, and man, so
we had 5. I had 5. That was my.
You son of a bitch. Okay, so pre-COVID, I was in a band, like very proud of this band, but studio shut down after we got 1 song out. So we currently have 3 monthly listeners, and I don't think this band is a thing anymore, so don't expect anything from us. But very proud of this. So if anyone wants like some, I don't know, it's like, I would say it's like math metal, but I don't know. Genres are weird.
Yeah, what's it called?
I'm posting it in the chat here, yeah.
Okay, here we go. Spotify, let me just read this out for the audio listeners.
Right.
Rivals and Iron.
Yeah.
Okay, Rivals, RIVALS space AN space ion, like a electron ion, ION, like electrolysis, that kind of ion.
Yeah. It's an anagram. I can't say what for, because I'm trying to build some lore here, but...
Okay, all right. Let me just listen to, synchronicity. If I'm going to blow my brains out if I listen to this.
No, there's no vocals at all,
headphones.
so if people are like, oh, metal, don't worry about it. There's no...
Shit.
Is it loud?
All right, that was pretty loud. Yeah, that was pretty loud. I knew that was coming. I still walked straight into it. Okay, yeah, check that out. Synchronicity. Again, link will be in the description. And also check out the Bitcoin Cash podcast on Spotify. We've got 1 song. I wanted to get my second one right. I want to get changing the game up there, but they've auto detected that I use the sample from Mike Shinoda from Remember the Name, and so they won't let me upload it. So I talked to the mods on Mike Shinoda's Discord, and they were like, we'll ask his management, and then they haven't got back to me. So
Mike's really active on Twitch too. You might actually be better off just like popping into the chat one day and being like, hey man, I made this, you want to check it out? Maybe he'll play it on the stream. Yeah,
exactly. I think he would genuinely like it. I think he would be like, because I mean, not only is he a cool guy, so I think he would like that, but also the whole original music video is them in that scrappy warehouse, just making it happen with fucking nothing. I think he would appreciate that vibe. But anyway, we'll see if we can follow that up. Releasing a BCH album. I'm working on it, man. I'm working on it. I'm doing what I can. All right, cool. So that's it. Last slide. Thank you to everybody for listening. Donations on the slide, as always. Check out the start guide, the FAQs. I've now made a roadmap as well, although it's still pretty scrappy, but it's kind of in the works. BitcoinCashPodcast.com. Thank you to all the donators. Like I was saying before, don't work in the lab in silence and don't ask for more money that you can. Just deliver and get feedback. And that's what I've been doing with the donations. It's been great. So thanks to everyone for that. Shout out to my patron, Ricky, and any other shout outs. Who do you want to give a shout out to this week?
Oh, Jesus. You're putting me on the spot. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just loading up the podcast on my phone so I can give you another sub here, bruh.
I'm giving a shout out to the chat, to Bitcoin Jason, to Zik Pete, Bitcoin payment modules, and also on-chain scaling for the first time being in there. But particularly those other ones come back week in and week out, and they're there when the show goes live, and it makes it awesome. It's honestly, it feels much more engaging and interesting. I guess we did plenty of streams where nobody chatted at all. Or maybe somebody came in and put in a spam link for like sex toys or something, right? There was definitely a few of those. So it's awesome to have real people engaging in real time. It's super cool. So yeah, that's my shout out. And I did, by the way, I did turn down the ads as well. People were saying on Twitch they were getting tons of ads. So I looked into it, and the default setting is to run 3 minutes of ads every 8 minutes. So I was like, Jesus, that is a lot. They have it set to max it. So I changed it. It's the opposite. Now it's it's 30 seconds of ads every hour, but that's only if you're watching the replays on Twitch. So hopefully that shouldn't be too annoying. Like, we already get donations. We don't worry about ad money. I don't need it. Cool. So that'll do it for this week, and happy BCH Fork Day to everybody. Happy BCH anniversary. Happy BCH independence. Looking forward to the next 5 years. Yeah. Cheers. I've run out of drinks. That's it. Enjoy, everyone.
And this one's for you, Jeremy.
Till next time.
The greatest story the world has ever known. The rise and rise of Bitcoin. 2022.
A single chance for the world, a single moment in time. Bankers captures all, our cryptocurrency flies. Gets to decide, Phoenix fly from the flame. Bitcoin BCH, forever changing the game.
An underdog story everyone trying to deny. Bitcoin revolution, crypto trade on the rise. Then they stole our brand name and tried to push us aside, cause they said it was over, that we'd never survive.